Good morning, everyone. I'm Matt Ewalt, Senior Director of Events and Live Journalism for the Texas Tribune. Welcome to those joining us in person here in Austin and those joining us online for our conversation with Texas House Democratic Caucus Chair, State Representative Jean Wu, as part of our 2025 Texas Legislature series here in Austin. Now is also a good time to remind you to silence your cell phones. Our program will run an hour with 45 minutes of moderated conversation and 15 minutes of Q&A. So that we can get to as many questions as possible today, we'll be doing Q&A through our Q&A portal at texastribune.org/ask. We've also printed information in the back of the studio here with a QR code that can take you there. And we even have some note cards if you'd like to write your question down for us. And we'll set aside 15 minutes for that at the end of the program. We are always grateful for the support of our sponsors. We want to thank Starbucks for providing coffee and pastries for our audience here in Austin and for powering us through session as the official coffee of the Texas Tribune's 2025 Texas Legislature event series. I also want to acknowledge John and Susan from the Starbucks at 15th and San Antonio for helping us out today. Under a few seats here in our studio are also some Starbucks gift cards. With your gift card, feel free to stay a while at your neighborhood Starbucks. You receive a free refill on hot and iced brewed coffee. It would be hilarious if you all could see what's happening in the studio right now as everyone looks under their chair. You receive a free refill on hot and iced brewed coffee and tea during the same store visit, just as long as people don't start shifting chairs so that they can get more cards. Though corporate sponsors and donors underwrite this event, they play no role in determining the content, speakers, or line of questioning. I also want to mention that this event is eligible for CPE credits, continuing professional education credits for educators through ATPE, the Association of Texas Professional Educators. There's a QR code on screen, and if you're here in the studio and you want more information, please see a Tribune staffer. Thank you to all those around the state who make the journalism of the Tribune, including our events like this, possible by becoming a Texas Tribune member. To learn more and to become a member, visit texastribune.org/support. And a note on some upcoming events. We have a busy week here in Austin tomorrow at Austin Community College's Rio Grande campus. Texas Tribune Editor-in-Chief Matthew Watkins sits down with Austin Mayor Kirk Watson. And on February 4th, Matthew is in conversation with State Senator Charles Perry, the second event on our 2025 Texas Legislature series here in Studio 919. We also have a number of programs around the state that over the next couple months that we'll be announcing. So you can learn more about these events at texastribune.org/events. So now let's get to today's program. State Representative Jean Wu serves the people of District 137 in southwestern Houston in the Texas House, and in December was elected the new chair of the Texas House Democratic Caucus. Prior to being elected in 2012, he served as a prosecutor in the Harris County District Attorney's Office. He's now serving in his 7th term. And our moderator, Jasper Scherer, politics reporter here at the Tribune, previously covered Texas politics and government for Hearst Newspaper's Austin Bureau, which he joined after stints covering City Hall for the Houston Chronicle and Bexar County for the San Antonio Express News. I thank Representative Wu for joining us this morning, and with that, I turn the program over to Jasper.
All right, very good. Thanks, Matt, and thanks so much, Chairman, for sitting down with me this morning. I think I'm looking forward to having this conversation. I think it's a very timely moment just after the last couple weeks in the Texas House. Pretty safe to describe them as momentous. Just, you know, the lower chamber where you serve elected a new speaker. Yes, just 2 weeks ago, and since then, the House has also put out its first draft of the state budget, and then just 5 days ago, also adopted new House rules with some key implications, I guess, for your caucus, which we can get into. But before that, I thought we might begin just with your run for House Democratic Caucus chair, and really why you decided to take a swing for this position. Just, tell me what, in your estimation, the race between yourself and Representative Trey Martinez Fisher was really about, and what was the case that you made to your Democratic colleagues for why they should put you into this leadership position?
Thanks for having me here, and please, if you can, please call me Gene. And the race was more or less about sort of two different visions for what the future brings for Democrats. And after the 24 election results, I was pretty despondent. I was pretty pissed off, and I said, like, we need to change what we're doing. We have to be different. We have to be better. And I think we appreciate Trey Martinez Fisher's leadership in the past, and I think people say we just want something different. That's it.
Sure, fair enough. And I think one thing that was talked about sort of surrounding this race was, I guess, communication, to put it broadly. And I think to drill down on that a little bit, you're known as someone who at times doesn't pull his punches when he's speaking out on the House floor, going after.
Did you want to say bomb thrower?
Yeah, you insert descriptor. Going after your critics on social media sometimes too. Not always in an antagonistic fashion too. I've seen very active on Reddit, posting daily video updates during the 2023 session, even as chair, engaging with folks on the Texas politics subreddit. Do you feel that that's something that Democrats should be doing? Should they be doing more of this kind of stuff? And if so, why?
I don't recommend people go be trolls unless that's actually in your repertoire, and because it's the internet has made me a worse person, right?
Whomst among
look,
us?
I know,
yes.
like a lot of times on Twitter, it's just I'm tired of suffering fools gladly, whether that is just some random troll or whether that's an elected official. And I'm tired of us like living in a post-fact society. Like, I have a real problem with that. I'm a licensed Texas attorney. I've been a prosecutor. I've sworn so many different times to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Texas. And when we live in a society where like what people say doesn't matter anymore, and what the reality doesn't matter anymore, that hurts me as an American. And like, I just don't know what to do about it. And I think Democrats should be more aggressive in saying, no, that's not the America we want to believe in. That's not the America that I grew up with. We are a country of law and order. We are a country of rules. We are a country of justice and fairness. What happened to it?
There you go. Fair enough. I guess pivoting a little bit, I wanted to talk about where the caucus is at right now, just in terms of unity. And we're underway in this session where Democrats control 62 seats in the House, which is your lowest number since 2017. And this, I guess, is kind of always the case, but maybe perhaps even more than in recent sessions, it seems that your chances of defeating certain Republican priorities hinges on putting up a united front with the numbers where they are. So I guess just kind of coming out of the caucus leadership change, coming out of this speaker's vote where everyone's emotions are running high, I just want to ask, like, how united are Texas Democrats at the moment? I mean, is there anything lingering from the chair election, et cetera, that gives you concern? Are things mostly kind of kumbaya, maybe somewhere in between? What's your assessment?
I'm not sure I care. Because the only thing that matters to me is that Democrats do better. Because when Democrats do better, Texans do better, right? And I don't know what lingering feelings are out there, but the only question I have for anybody that has lingering feelings is, do you want Democrats to win or do you want Democrats to lose? What else matters? And just answer that question. Is what you're doing good for Democrats or bad for Democrats? And just ask yourselves, right?
Sure.
That's it.
And I guess just to press on that a little bit, I mean, do you feel like, if that hypothetical question is posed to generally the vast majority of your caucus, I mean, do you feel like folks are kind of at the point where it's like, let's all get on the same page to, put up a united front against the education savings account bill, for example? Even if there are lingering feelings, do you feel like the caucus is?
No, absolutely. And that is our strength. I mean, this is, again, we're coming from an election cycle where we were expecting to pick up like 4 or 5 and went to losing 2. But I think what is different this time is that Democrats have seen the error of our ways. And we have seen that our true power is in our unity and in our ability to speak for a really large chunk of Texans and make sure that their voices are heard by the powers that be, right? I think we have a new, in this second Trump era, in this time of darkness, I think Democrats are finally understanding that they have to be the light.
Sure. Fair enough. I mean, and I guess kind of sticking on the internal House politics theme, if you will, wanted to talk a little bit about the House rules that I mentioned in the intro, and your interpretation of what they mean for Democrats. And I think just to the kind of the upshot of these rules, and I wrote down kind of a brief summary because even I get confused sometimes. I mean, it's basically a bipartisan majority of the House, including 55 members of your caucus, voted to adopt these rules last week. Democrats no longer can chair any House committees, but the vice chairmanships are now all reserved for Democrats. Those positions have some new powers that they didn't have before, and also we have a dozen newly created subcommittees which Democrats can also chair. So 40,000-foot view, how do Democrats come out of this? I mean, as a caucus, do you feel like these rules leave you with more power, less power, about the same as before?
Look, I mean, Democrats made the only sensible choice they could, right? I think all of us could see that this was coming, that this was inevitable, that Republicans have spent all this time playing this political game, having all the people in the red shirts come in no Dem chairs, and made it such a big priority for them. And if we know that's coming, all we can do is negotiate for the best terms possible in exchange. And that's what Democrats did, right? And some people will say it's a loss, but look, we as a group guaranteed our ability to have a role in a process, guaranteed our ability to have some input, and that even if things go south, we have the ability to put some brakes on things.
Sure. And just getting a little bit into beyond the surface level of what those breaks might look like, what that process might look like. I feel like I've seen a lot of just confusion surrounding these rules. Just a lot of it revolving around what the vice chairs and the subcommittee chairs actually have the power to do.
Right.
I think especially when it comes to, for instance, requesting a vote on particular bills, some of the language surrounding these things is fairly ambiguous, it seems to me. I mean, how should we expect to see Democrats use these positions, the vice chair powers or the subcommittee chairs that they are awarded to influence, I guess, legislative outcomes?
Again, I mean, I think the commitment from the speaker and the speaker's team is that Democrats, through these rules, will have the ability to set bills, to call witnesses, and do a lot of the things that are necessary on a lot of legislation. And I mean, essentially, as vice chairs under these rules, I see it as that they have at least partial powers of the chair and can do this kind of work, right?
And it does seem to me too, with again the kind of the ambiguity in the language, that some of the effectiveness of a Democratic vice chair could revolve around, I guess, the quality of their relationship with the chair that they're working with, where it's if you're immediately antagonistic,
Right.
it's not going to work out.
But that's always been true.
Sure.
I mean,
But I guess to harness these expanded powers is kind of what I'm driving at, that some of the chair, if there's a Republican chair who's not seeing eye to eye with a Democratic vice chair, theoretically it seems that the Republican chair could kind of snuff out the vice chair in certain respects.
I get where your question is coming from. And I think the best way I can say this is this. I think what you have seen, what the people of the state of Texas have seen, are sensible center-right Republicans who care about their communities and want to fix things for the state, and Democrats getting together and saying, we don't care what the extremists want. We want to work on things that move the state forward, right? And I think that's why we've had this coalition to elect Speaker Burrows. That's why we had a coalition to work on the rules and the way they were. I think there is a reasonable trust but verifying kind of feel right now that, look, we're all treading on new ground. We're building this new coalition to try to fix things for the state. And some of this is just going to have to let's see how it plays out. But right now, given what has happened so far, I think the amount of trust has been built up.
Just had a couple more questions about politics, and then we could turn to policy, I think, for the rest of our conversation. Just a few questions about the speaker vote. I think you've spoken quite a bit about this publicly already, but just, Democrats didn't end up being pretty united on that vote, at least when it came to the binary choice between Burrows and Cook, the two Republicans. I guess just with Burrows, I mean, did you and the caucus overall, was this just purely a lesser of two evils situation, kind of like what you were just talking about with the rules, whereas, you saw sort of the deal that was on the table and it was kind of a no-brainer?
I think lesser of two evils may be a little bit harsh for the new,
Sorry, Dustin.
new speaker.
Yeah.
I think, look, I've sort of said this before, but I think for the people who've been here a long time and people who've been through multiple speakers races, this was hard because a lot of times the person who files 40 days ahead is often not the person who becomes speaker, right? And we've seen that time and time again. And so people had a hard time with it. But the problem is, in the past, when that was true, it always been a very, which of these three center-right Republicans do you like? Sure, he's my buddy or they're my buddy, whatever it is. This time was a very clear, look, Cook signed a written oath that he would not pass any Democratic bill until every Republican priority was done, which basically means you'll never pass a bill, right? Whereas Burrows is saying, look, I know I've carried bad bills that you don't like in the past, but I am committed to this institution. I'm committed to the process in making sure that you have some representation and that you get to ask for the things that you need for your districts. I'll accept that. I don't think that's lesser of two evils. That's someone who says, we want to keep the infrastructure there and make sure the organization works versus we don't care what happens to you, but we're going to smile at you when we stomp on you.
And beyond Burrows not being the candidate who was, like you said, kind of pledging to deprioritize Democratic bills and all the other things on,
I thought that was the last speaker race
right
question. All right, go ahead.
Well, no, I think to be fair, I did say two.
Okay, fine.
But no, I guess I'm wondering just, is there anything from your experience working with Burrows you guys have both been in the House for several terms now, just, that made you think, whether it's working with him on legislation or maybe, in legislative battles against him, that made you think you would give your caucus a fair shake? Just anything, I guess, qualities beyond just not being named David Cook.
He's willing to listen. Legitimately not just placate you and show you out the door, but he's willing to listen to your point, right? And we may not always agree, but at least you're willing to listen. If you're willing to listen, then we can talk about why a piece of legislation coming to the floor may be really bad for the body. and we can have that discussion.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. Let's talk about some policy areas, and we'll start with public education. The initial House budget draft that was released last week, in the lower chamber, increases funding for public schools by $3.4 billion, specifically for reflecting growth in student enrollment. There's also some other dollars for school safety improvements, retired teachers, but I guess overall north of $4 billion. I see you shaking your head there, so I kind of get a sense of where you're going with this, but just there has been some criticism I've seen from Texas State Teachers Association, some of your Democratic colleagues saying it's not enough, essentially. I mean, do you share that sentiment, and do you see I guess any potential wiggle room to get more money?
I mean, absolutely. This is the 900-pound gorilla in the room, right? The Texas public education system is about to pop. It is on the verge of collapse because of what Governor Abbott did 2 years ago, right? And I mean, he used the school finance system as a hostage to try to pass vouchers. And when he didn't get his way, the schools all suffered, right? The schools are about to close. Like every district, you have schools that are about to close. You have schools in rural communities that have gone from 5 days to 4 days, maybe down to 3 days soon. And the fact that we're only putting in this much money when the schools are already in such intense crisis, we're losing all our teachers. They're quitting, right?
I mean, is there any reason that you see to believe that this could be sort of just a, kind of an opening gambit from Republicans, or that maybe there could be, again, like I was saying, like wiggle room, or do you think this is more kind of set in stone?
I don't know what's on their minds, but I think, the people of the state need to say something, right? We sat on a surplus that's larger than other countries' GDPs, right? But yet we're the 44th worst funded school system in the nation. That should be a crime. Why are we sitting on so much money, and our students are the future of our state are not being taken care of? If you're a parent, you should be enraged. They're selling out your future. Those are your kids. And people, if this was any other place, people would be in the streets.
Well, let's talk about the related topic of both chambers also proposing to set aside $1 billion for education savings accounts, which is the school voucher type policy that's supported by Governor Abbott and other Republicans. Abbott has put his whip count in the House at 79 pro-voucher votes. I'm sure folks have here on the margins. I'm sure there's some various interpretation, but also Speaker Burrows has said essentially he thinks the votes are there. He's not going to stand in the way. And just going back to the Reddit AMA that I saw you do several weeks ago, you essentially characterized it as some version of vouchers is likely to pass, but it's not etched in stone. Is that still your prognosis?
No. I don't think vouchers has to pass. Because here's the fundamental thing. I still have not had anyone come explain to me in a rational way why it's okay when times are already this tough for us to take money from hardworking Texans and give it to the wealthy who already have kids in private school. Why would we transfer money from our meager taxes to the wealthy, giving them $10,000 to send their kids to a $40,000 a year private school? Somebody come tell me why that isn't a scam. Somebody come tell me why is that a rational policy? Tell me how that's fiscally conservative, that you're taking money, scarce public revenue, and using it to give the rich and make the rich even richer.
Well, I think the conversation around vouchers or ESAs is, I guess, not just about whether something will pass, but also, if that something does pass, what that something might look like, and how much money is involved, who's eligible, what sort of accountability measures are included. We had these debates for several months in 2023. So I don't. Democrats usually don't seem to like when I ask this question, but just if in the coming weeks and months of session, it gets to a point where vouchers have clear momentum, it seems
Yep.
like something is very likely to pass. I just want to ask, like, what your top priorities are for concessions or guardrails you'd want to include in the bill.
Look, I don't think we need to even. I don't think I even want to go into like what are the individual items, because again, I don't think this is. It's not going to be Democrats or Republicans that stop this. It's going to be the people of this state. The people of this state who are already every single day struggling to survive. And just look at, like, grocery shelves are empty now. And those people need to be asking, even with restrictions, why would we take our tax dollars and give it to the obscenely wealthy? Like, why would we do that? Why would we fall for this scam? All right? Explain that first. The people of this state need to be calling in their state representatives, calling in their state senators, and saying, like, why would you give my money to people who already have plenty?
Well, let's, I guess, stick on budget-related items, and actually just talking about the state budget overall. I mean, that is one place I think where Democrats have been able to kind of find some wins under Republican control, at least when the state is taking in so much more money than it's spending. We do happen to have a projected $24 billion surplus to start the next budget cycle. So I guess this is kind of just an open-ended question, but wonder if you can tell me a little bit about your priorities, your caucus's priorities for how you want to see that surplus get used, and I guess including for public ed, but
Right.
also if there are any other items.
No, I mean, public education is the absolute top priority right now. Our school systems are on the verge of collapse around the state, right? And that absolutely has to get funded. But like, there's a lot of things that we can work on that we need immediate attention. We need to drive down the price of housing. Rent is continuously going up, and it is going unabated. We passed the tax breaks for landlords last time, right? I was one of the only members voting against it. And they said that they told us that the rents would go down after they passed the bill and gave them the tax break. I don't see nobody's rent going down, right? And rent's still going up. So if the state has a surplus and they're not using it for these things and moving Texans forward and investing in the future, and actually invest in the future that we've had in the past, right? Like, how did we get to this wealth and this power? Because in the past, we put money into public education, we put money into higher education, we had healthcare systems, we have all these things. Let's reinvest in Texans.
Sure. You've also served on the House Appropriations Subcommittee that oversees the Health and Human Services part of the budget, which Article 2, just wanted to briefly touch on that because healthcare is the biggest part of the state budget. And I think one thing that stands out in these initial budget proposals, I don't know if you've had a chance to come through all like 1,080 pages of them, probably not, but I think it's one thing is the $300 million set aside for the HHSC to essentially make it easier for folks to apply for Medicaid, health insurance, and for food stamps. I mean, is it kind of two-part question, I guess. Is that something you were really hoping to see, and is there anything else that stands out to you in these base budgets regarding healthcare funding priorities that you'd like to see, or maybe something that wasn't in the base budgets that you feel was inappropriately deprioritized as far as healthcare goes?
We're still in the process of going through. I mean, it's a very large document.
It's a lot of pages,
and we're still in the midst of going through it. But again, a lot of the items, and as I've complained about very publicly in the past, a lot of the items we talk about in the budget, we continuously focus on sort of like the end of the road kind of costs, like hospital beds and things like that, and we don't focus enough on preventative treatment, like smart, sensible things that we just a little expenditure would have yield much bigger savings down the road. Like, I always complain about those kind of things, and I'm sure I'll have to complain about them again.
And just sticking on the state budget topic, I will note that the House and Senate are both proposing to spend $6.5 billion on border security over the next 2 years, which is more or less in line with the current budget. You've been opposed, of course, to Operation Lone Star, the Texas Border Initiative, and the money that's being used to pay for it. But I guess I kind of wanted to ask, I'm wondering if you see room for the state to play some sort of role in policing or regulating the border. And I think, to be fair, your answer on this might depend a little bit on who's in the White House, for instance. But the state was spending $800 million a biennium, I believe, before the Biden administration. So, just generally speaking, is your ideal border security budget for Texas like somewhere around $0, or do you see some sort of I guess limited role where that maybe doesn't go quite as far as Operation Lone Star?
So, I mean, that's kind of a complicated question, because
yes,
you're saying, like, should we continue Operation Lone Star in some way? Tell me what Operation Lone Star has done. Show me the actual results of what they have done with the literally like tens of billions of dollars, right? Other than pay for overtime for state troopers, right? And buy helicopters and speedboats, what have they actually done? And then you say, like, well, should we continue some form? Like, well, why would we continue something that does nothing, right? And what we should do is, instead of that, all that money that we spend down there, if we really wanted to help border communities, we would invest in border communities, not just have people bring National Guard or State Guard in to come in and out, but like, let's actually invest in those communities, build up their hospital systems, build up their schools, build up the water systems, work on all those things for those communities so they can feel safe and secure, right? And then if we have sensible immigration policies that we have asked for from a national level for decades, but nationally, Republicans have blocked those efforts every step of the way because the crisis is what's important. The ability to demagogue on this and use it as a campaign material to drive fear, that's what's more important. They could fix this at any time. They just choose not to. And now we're seeing the ramifications of it right now as we're doing mass deportations, migrant laborers, migrant farmers aren't going to work. All of a sudden, the exact thing that Democrats and other advocates have said would happen has happened, right?
I want to see how we're doing on time. Just a reminder for folks, including those watching online, to submit questions online. We're going to be doing a 15-minute Q&A with audience questions at the end. Let's see. So I guess one quick follow-up on the border and immigration. I mean, I think what we're seeing with Texas Republican leaders, Governor Abbott, et cetera, is it's not just that they're looking to maintain kind of the existing border operations, but also they're adopting this kind of collaborative approach to working with the Trump administration's efforts, trying to, support the mass deportations and sending, Trump sending federal troops to the border. Yesterday, Governor Abbott ordered the deployment of 400 more National Guard members to go work with Border Patrol agents. So all that backdrop there, I mean, where do Democrats in the state house fit into the picture here? I mean, you were sort of talking a little bit about, I guess investing in border communities as an area to play in the arena, so to speak. But, without controlling the legislature or the governor's office, just like what are other areas you're looking to play a role legislatively on these aforementioned areas here?
I think Democrats are going to have to represent their communities and represent all the communities who are crying out in anguish right now, right? A lot of those communities voted for Trump thinking that it wouldn't be them, but it turns out it included them. Those communities are crying out in anguish right now, and I think it would be dangerous for Republicans, including Governor Abbott, to not hear those cries, right? Those cries aren't coming just from the undocumented. They're coming from Americans. They're coming from Americans who are watching kids being torn from their families, from all these things that we found abhorrent in the past histories. And we're watching it happen in our own country. I'd say ignore that at their own peril.
Did want to pivot to a completely different topic, but I guess that has also been in the news lately, which is this recent development of Lieutenant Governor Patrick saying that he thinks the legislature should clarify the language of Texas's near total abortion ban to address the confusion over when doctors can terminate pregnancies, and just sort of clarifying what constitutes a life-threatening condition. I guess what if anything are you hearing so far? I know this is extremely early on, so I don't know if you're hearing anything about what those clarifications could look like. And I guess part B, how are you feeling about the chances of getting any sort of changes across the finish line this session?
Well, we are just very happy to have our wonderful Donna Howard, chair of the Women's Health Caucus, really be the stalwart and the leader in this area. And I know she's in direct communications with everybody to talk about this. And I think even on this level, like sensible Republicans recognize that this is bad politics, right? This is a bad look, that we're letting women who are having a miscarriage take the risk of death, like, because we want to be harsh in our rules, right? And I think even they see that this is wrong, and this needs to get.
So it sounds like maybe a tentative vote of confidence, sort of but mostly just waiting to see how it plays out because it's so early in the session.
But again,
yeah.
If this is something that you care about, I can only imagine there are Republican women who would say, like, hey, I'm pro-life or whatever else, but if I was pregnant and I needed to be saved, I want to be saved. Like, there has to be Republican women who believe that too. Like, call your state legislators, call your state senators, tell them, pass this law.
Another area where the lieutenant governor has made some news lately is his desire to ban consumable THC in Texas. Aside from the medical uses that are already permitted, he has since clarified. But I guess without going into all the background on this, where do Democrats stand on this issue, and do you sense that there's an appetite from a majority of the House to establish an outright ban on THC?
I'm not sure about the entirety of the House, but I know among Democrats, I don't know a single person who does not currently support full legalization of marijuana just as is, because it's way past time, right? Not just past time right now, but way past time that for us to legalize Canada, Mexico, to neighboring states. What is it saying in the South? The horse is out of the barn, right? The horse is way, way gone. It's been legal here for 5 years, and for like most people, there's no practical difference. And you're taking something away that people like and have gotten used to. That's not smart politics. And so I'm not sure the House would even want to touch that with a 10-foot pole, right? Why like make this entire group of people? You follow me on Reddit, but you see on like Our Texas, like when that first announcement came out, like every other post was, what the hell are they thinking? Who's that? And like people who are not political all of a sudden are like, I'm ready to call and write everybody.
Right, THC might turn Texas blue. Who knows?
Like if Republicans want to start that war, go for it.
Yeah, no, I'm kidding, but I think I guess I'm kind of just jumping around here because I want to hit as many topics as we can. We have, I think, about 6 minutes or so before we turn it over to the audience. Transgender rights is another topic that is, I guess just the question of GOP efforts to restrict the lives of transgender Texans. And I think what we've seen so far this session, just the bills that I've seen, it's kind of this, I guess, somewhat new turn towards the rights of transgender adults, in contrast to recent sessions. Some of the proposals, just to make sure I'm checking these all off, like redux of the 2017 bathroom bill, for instance. I mean, is that sort of the thing you're expecting to see this session?
What happened to the Tea Party? What happened to, like, we're libertarians? Like, government should be small enough to drown in a bathtub kind of people? Like, that's who I came in with, right? Came in 13. It was like the second wave of like the Tea Party, right? It was the 19, including currently Burrows, who voted against Strauss and all this fun stuff. And they're like, less government, less government, less government. And now all of a sudden, like, we're like, wait, we're telling adults who are making a personal medical decision what to do? How does that move Texans forward? What does that have to do with increasing our wages? Like increasing the minimum wage? How does that work on lowering our insurance costs? What does that do for our food prices? How does that help anyone? To mess with like adults making their own decisions. And the question I need like Texans of good conscience to ask is, what are Republicans doing? Like, do they not see that people are suffering? Do they not see that people are barely scraping by? Like, I interviewed with a 29-year-old journalist, and I just as kind of a casual like chit chat, I just asked her, "Hey, do you ever dream about buying a house?" She laughed in my face. No, that makes me want to cry. That you have a white-collar professional who went to college and did all these things at 29 after being employed in her profession for almost a decade, can't dream of buying a house? What are we doing? Why are we picking on trans kids when we have all these massive problems to solve? What are Republicans doing? Can somebody tell me?
Well, let's talk about another Republican item, and I think this might be our last question before the audience jumps in here. The Republican, I guess, another item on the, beyond the bathroom bill revival, I guess another GOP wish list item that has run into resistance in the House is Republican efforts to restrict bail, the state bail laws, specifically amending the state constitution to give judges more discretion to deny bail outright. You're an attorney. You're intimately familiar with this discussion. It's come up repeatedly over the last handful of sessions. Again, just I'm curious how your caucus is approaching this debate. This is a constitutional amendment. You need 100 votes in the House, so that it's like a dozen or so House Democrats that would need to get on board. What's your prognosis on what you expect on that debate this session, and do you see it failing to reach the 2/3 mark again? Or let me start with that broader question. Just how is your caucus?
That's a big loaded question.
Yes, yeah.
I'm not even sure where to start chomping on that elephant.
Right.
Okay, so my issue usually when they try to pass bail reform is it's always hella unconstitutional. Like we've tried to explain them, like, look, it's this little book you can pick up and you can flip it open, you can read what it says, right? And if what you're trying to do conflicts with one of those requirements, it's no bueno. Right?
And you're talking about the U.S. Constitution.
Yes, U.S. Constitution.
Yeah.
But the Texas Constitution provides the same protection. In fact, the Texas Constitution provides higher protections than the U.S. Constitution, right? And like I I don't actually hate being that guy. I actually love being that guy. Like, I'm the guy on the floor who I always get up and say, guys, come on, this is like really, really unconstitutional. I know everyone likes it, but come on. I know you guys know better. And then I am the only, like, one of two, three people who vote against it, and nobody cares.
Well,
Sorry, that was a very long.
no, that's. I mean, I think it. I'm also kind of struggling with where to bite off the, which part of the elephant to bite off on this question, because it has, like I said, come up so many times. But
The easy way to fix what they want is comprehensive bail reform in the state of Texas. Stop doing this half and half. Like, let's do bail reform, but let's keep the cash bail system. It doesn't
So
work.
what is that? The cliff notes of what that looks like.
Look, we've done cash bail. That, like, the idea that bad guys can pay money to buy their way out. And we want to move to a system and say, hey, instead, we should do an assessment of how dangerous you actually are, right? And the people who are not dangerous, who are there for minor offenses, whatever else, send them home. Why make them pay? The people who you don't want released, who are the gangsters and the drug lords and the serial killers, you don't let them buy their way out. You know what happened in Houston because of the cash bail system? A hitman killed someone, got arrested for it, got bonded out immediately, went and committed another hit. Right? Why allow someone that you know is a paid hitman to buy their way out? Fix it. Their reforms don't actually fix anything. If you want to fix this, fix the entire system.
Fair enough. Matt, do we want to jump into audience questions?
Yeah, and just a reminder, as we enter into our Q&A period, you can submit questions at texastribune.org/ask, but we've received plenty of questions from our in-person and online audience. Alicia from Austin writes, you were a longtime member of the recently abolished JJFI committee. You were there this summer when the scathing U.S. DOJ report on constitutional violations and abuse in TJJD came out. But as you know, there's currently a plan from last session to build 2 new youth prisons despite these recent developments and no remedial action from the agency. What do you think can be done to ensure we don't expand an agency that is actively harming children while building the infrastructure of alternatives to prison in communities?
How many hours do you have?
We've got 13 minutes.
I mean, this should really be embarrassing for all Texans, really. When it was TYC, same problems. We legislate, we pass rules, then another review, same results. We pass rules, we fire people, we put new people in, do another assessment, same results. At some point, we have to say, hey, maybe the state shouldn't imprison kids. Maybe you should let, like, the counties hold the kids, because the counties manage to hold 10 times the number of kids and not have this happen all the time, right? And we need to start talking about, like, ending the last 5 TJJD units where this stuff keeps happening again and again and again. Sometimes there is nothing else we can do but say, like, obviously this is not working, but, like, look, people are going to be resistant to it. People are going to have oppositions for a lot of different reasons, but we simply cannot keep going down this road again and again and again. Like, I mean, does that make sense? We just keep doing the same thing. I mean, like, they didn't follow the rules that were already in place. People say, well, what's your solution? The solution, they said their solution is, well, we're going to follow the rules. Well, you didn't follow them the first time. What makes you think you're going to follow them the second time, right? And we don't.
Just had one extremely quick follow-up on that. You're talking about, maybe we shouldn't, quote unquote, imprison kids. You have filed all sorts of legislation aimed at, like, raising the minimum age of criminal responsibility, sealing or expunging, juvenile arrest records, that kind of stuff. I mean, do you get the sense that there's, bipartisan appetite on that sort of stuff where that you could see that making it through the legislature?
I think so, right? And so like on raise the age, which is something we filed for over a decade now, right? And raise the age is saying that the juvenile jurisdiction age should be raised from 17 to 18, where it is for the rest of the nation, which gives like the 17 to 18-year-olds a second chance because they would be processed under juvenile law and they would get a chance to have a clean slate, right? There's a process to do that for juvenile cases. And when I first came in, there were about 15 states left that had not changed it to 18, and Texas was one of them. Texas is now basically the last state, right? It's us and I think like one other state, but they're working on it. And I cannot for the life of me understand why Texas, of all states, cannot figure out how to do it, right? Every state system is different, but every state has managed to fix this except Texas. Are we like, are we not smart enough? Or is it just like we need the political will and courage to say, like, let's just get this done once and for all, instead of just continuously being a national embarrassment about this stuff?
Cynthia from Fort Worth asks, you said many times today you think people should be loudly voicing their opposition to proposed laws and voicing their opinions about what's important to them. What are the top 1 to 3 things you think any registered voter should do to make their voice heard in Texas?
One, register to vote, right? Make sure you're registered to vote. And I would say, this is what I tell people, you email your state rep and senator, you call them, you send them messages on social media, you go meet with them when they're in community and they have events, go show up and talk to them. Like, which one of those ones should you do? All of them. As many as you can, as often as you can, right? And this is what it is. Like, if you care about something, if you want the legislature to act, you want them to do something, you don't want them to do something, you better use your voice. Because on the other side of things are the billionaires. On the other side of things are the billionaires who are trying to buy and sell the Texas House, as they bought and sold the governor's mansion and the Senate. And if you are not okay with that, you're not okay with selling off the state piece by piece, but instead you want Texans to be the key investments for the legislature. If you want that, you have to make it a priority and do it, and be loud and be angry, right?
Walker from Alpine asks, how are Democrats planning to defend renewable energy from repeated attacks from the right to limit the further build out of solar, wind, and battery storage in Texas?
I think our argument really shouldn't even be, I mean, there's just people who just oppose solar because it's like we're owning the libs kind of attitude. We're like, who are you? And I get in these heated arguments with like Republicans who are against it. I'm like, my friend, do you know where the wind and solar farms are in the state? They're up north. They're in the Panhandle. They're in the Lubbock area, right? Those cotton fields are long gone. You know what replaced them? Really high-paying tech jobs, taking care of solar systems, taking care of wind turbines. And you're saying, like, get rid of it? Are you nuts? That's like one of the reddest areas of Texas. And I think, like, what we need to do is we need to go to our chambers of commerce. We need to go to our business association and tell them, like, guys, you guys know internally that we need to be sensible and deal with climate change, and we need alternative energy sources, and we need to be smart about the future. Go talk to them. Use your donation dollars. Use your lobbying money to tell them, like, stop messing with solar, stop messing with renewables, because it's good for the state. We have like more renewable generation in this state than like the neighboring states combined times 10. Like, we should be really proud of that, right? Those are like, not only is it that's a lot of generation, that's a lot of protection for the state and making sure we have power, but those are good jobs. Those are high-paying tech jobs.
Certainly the conversation today has identified priorities, but I appreciate, and this may provide an opportunity to kind of succinctly list them. This person writes, so you have priorities for House Democrats. What are your lege priorities this session? If you...
My priority?
Yes.
My only priority this session, not to be cliche, is making sure that Democrats can win. Right. Right now, if you look, I filed no bills. I don't intend to, because my only objective in this session is to make sure that Democrats are prepared for battle, that we go out there and represent our communities and give voice to the millions of Texans who are screaming for help, who are screaming for justice, and who want a better future. We're going to make sure that those voices of the people are heard. That's it.
And what is that? What do those efforts look like on your end? Just thinking, day to day during session. I mean, is that crafting messaging, working behind the scenes? You expand on that a little bit more.
Absolutely. All of the above. And so, really, I think if you're an observer of what we've done in the past month or so, we've hired much more staff. Many of whom are sitting in the front row. By the way, this is also my chief of staff's, Paige Buffkin Dodge's birthday, who's sitting right here. So let's give her a round of applause, please. And she will murder me when we get back.
Well, you got it out.
Understandably, just used language about going to battle. And you also, I think early in the conversation, joked but about social media and understandably the kind of toxic culture that exists. As you fight for the Democrats' priorities, how do you also model the way we as Texans can work together even when we vehemently disagree?
I think one of the things, kind of a comment I made to my wife in talking through some of the politics and stuff, is I want a system where good guys don't finish last, right? The people who do the right things, the people who do what's good for everybody, those are the people who are rewarded and taken care of, right? And I think the way we've engaged with people is important. That I think the public and the press, we should be commending the members on either side who are working together and talking about things in a sensible adult manner that we would expect if we were talking to our neighbors. And then we should not reward bad behavior. When people throw tantrums, when people do this and the other, screaming for attention, we should not reward those people, right? We should all, as Texans, congratulate and commend people who break partisan lines to work together and to work for things that all Texans want. And I'll say this, and I mean, I've always meant this, I did say this. Texans owed a debt of gratitude to the 24 Republicans who stood up to Governor Abbott and stood up for their communities and killed vouchers. And the 15 or so Republicans who lost their races because of Governor Abbott, because of the billionaires who are happy to throw in millions and millions of dollars in lies, like those people should be commended as heroes because they did what I think all people should expect their elected officials to do, and that is sacrifice their own personal well-being for what is good for the country, what is good for their community. Like, we should respect them for making that sacrifice, and I'm serious about that. And I think all Democrats, Republicans should all look at them and say, like, those guys and gals, they're heroes. They're actual, real heroes.
So we have time for one last question, and want to thank everyone in the audience here and online who submitted questions. I'll share those additional questions with you and your team so that you know what else is on Texans' minds. But this last question, and then I'll let Jasper, you close the program. But Steve from Fort Worth asked, if someone were looking to get involved in running for local politics for the first time,
Do it.
what roles do you think are most important on the ground locally?
Anything you can win, right? I encourage people, like everybody, if you're upset, if you don't like the way things are, get active. You don't always have to run for office. You can help with elections. You can help with campaigns. You can make phone calls. You can organize your community to write letters. There's so much you can do. But the worst thing we can do is nothing, right? The worst thing we can do is just sit there hoping that someone is going to come to the rescue, somebody's going to take care of it. There's no hero coming. There's nobody riding to our rescue. If you're waiting for a hero, it's you. I know that's kind of cliche, but I think Americans need to remember that, you know, nobody's coming in D-Day style to rescue us. If we're going to fix this thing, if we're going to make this country work for working class people again, if we're going to save the middle class while there's something to be saved, it's all on us. Like, we have to do it.
Got it. I think we're done here, but I just wanted to, again, say thanks to Chairman Wu, who says I should call him Gene, for taking the time to field a wide range of questions, and to the audience, thanks for tuning in. Hope y'all got something out of this conversation, and yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.